Welcome to the Sex Reimagined Podcast, where sex is shame-free and pleasure-forward. Let's get into the show.
Okay, everyone, it is my absolute honor and pleasure to be interviewing Leah Piper for you today. She is such a superstar, so fun. I love her, and I know you all do too. So Leah is the founder of More Love Works. She is an advanced certified Tantra educator and a certified positive psychology coach. So by combining the art of conscious loving with the science of well-being, she's developed a modern approach to enhance effectively any relationship, whether it's a partnership in the bedroom or partnership in the boardroom. Leah has facilitated thousands of couples and individuals all over the world through More Love Works, Source School of Tantra, yoga, and certification courses and private retreats to provide healing tools that increase the human experience of profound love. We are so blessed and so honored, especially me, to have her in our world.
Thank you. It's funny, a lot of people who've been to our weekend seminar sort of know this about me because I usually open up the women's class when it's just me and the women with, I have to put on my lipstick because there's something about, for me, like, you know how Superman has his cape and he goes into the phone booth and he comes out and he's all dressed and ready to go. For me, lipstick is kind of that way.
Yes, get your lipstick on, girl.
Thank you. And I was just going, you know what? I forgot to put lipstick on before we called into this. So, pow.
Now she's ready.
Yeah, that's a little Leah for you.
I know. So you were saying you open up the Source School of Tantra stuff with speaking to the women.
Well, yeah, on Saturdays with the beginners weekend, we break up the men and the women. So it gives us a chance for people to sort of ask questions that they may not ask in front of the opposite gender, especially if they're with a partner. It gives them a chance to kind of go, and then I can really explain to them their specific role for the evening, which is different than maybe a partner that they will be choosing. With same-sex couples, usually one partner will go with the other group and one partner will stay in the other group. So for instance, in the Saturday night homework, there's going to be someone who receives and someone who gives. And as everyone's gathering, we're getting into the circle, usually that's when I realize I need lipstick and I need water. Oh, and a piece of chocolate.
Don't forget the dark chocolate.
Kind of a casual moment, but I've noticed this keeps on happening. I need my lipstick.
It's your super cake.
It is. I think I actually teach better when I have lipstick on.
I agree. Sometimes I'm sitting in the audience as a student going, what the hell is up with Leah? She's not teaching well. It must be the lack of fucking lipstick on that.
Girl, some color. Yeah.
Leah, tell us, what brought you to Tantra? I mean, you have been doing this for almost 20 years, I think. So, I mean,
3.
Yeah.
Well, longer than that. I mean, 2003 was when I started pursuing a career in Tantra. But 1997 was when I had my first Tantric initiation. I've always been accused of being an old soul, whatever that means. Mm-hmm. But I think part of that is I had the awareness not to take things too seriously or literally as a younger person. So where all of my friends were having boyfriends and dramas, coming of age, I just thought, this is ridiculous. It's not like you're going to be with this person. We have our entire lives ahead of us. So really, it was sort of the way that I would think. And in 1997, I was graduating high school. Really I'd had some sexual experiences, but nothing serious. Didn't really take boys very seriously. But I think I still hungered for love and wanted to be more sexual than I was given opportunities to be. And then one party, I met this lovely older man. He was a bongo drummer. Those bongo drummers. And a friend of mine who I worked with was in a band with him. And he lifted me off my feet literally with the first hug. He was the type of
Aw.
person who was like this big bear, and he came in,
Yeah.
and I felt like he literally inhaled my essence into his being. Till this day, it might
Juicy.
just be still the best hug I've ever had.
Wow.
It was very erotic and awakening, and it changed my world that day. And so
Wow.
we had a fast and furious romance, probably no longer than 6 months, maybe even shorter. But I kept so many things from him, not only the way that he made love, but also during the heartbreak of us going in separate directions. He also left all of his books and all of his artwork. And that's where I found the book, Tantra, the Art of Conscious Loving. This one right here.
Is that Margot Anand?
Charles Muir.
That's Charles and Caroline. Nice.
Yeah. And so I read that book, and it was like the lights came on. It was suddenly, I thought that all these things that I was experiencing in this rapture had to do with this person. Come to find out that the rapture was connected to things he picked up in a book. And my mind was blown and forever changed. And so then I was on a quest. I was the life of every party because I wanted to talk about this.
Yeah, you were the
And
tantric
let's
quest
swim in the
queen.
deep end together. And everyone was always up for the conversation. But when it came to the practice, my group of friends was still a little too young
Yeah.
to know what all of this was really meaning to me. And it took another older man, some 5 or 6 years later, to swim back in those deeper waters.
Was he a
So,
bongo drummer too?
no, he was a guitar player.
Of course. Yeah, I knew he was a musician.
I had a
of some
musician
sort.
phase. I definitely had a musician phase.
Well, they got good rhythm. They know how to listen. I mean, come on.
Ew.
Yeah,
Artists make great lovers.
they do.
Yeah. And engineers do too, eventually.
Yeah, because they want to get it right.
That's right.
Oh, I love that. So you really had fantastic guidance and inspiration from these older men who came into your sphere, and it was almost like the universe was like, "Here, let me guide you this way, Leah," and just delivered these people into your realm so that you could really be opened up to a tantric path at a very young, very early age. So then what was the time frame from the time you read that book, discovered that book and read it to the time that you went to your first Source Tantra weekend?
So I went to the March 2003 Santa Cruz Beginners Weekend. And by that time, I'd had a couple tantric relationships. And between the, 2000 and, what year did 1997 and 2003, I had bought this book. Like, I would go to used bookstores and look for this book, and I would give it to every single new guy I dated.
Love it. Let me teach
And
you. Here,
yes,
read this book.
please read this book.
You
Please
are
read this
not
book.
coming near me until you read this book.
Well, that was not
Quite
really.
that way.
But by the time I was reading the book out loud to them
Uh-huh.
is when they were usually kaput. It was like they weren't going to really take it seriously.
Yeah.
So I was probably around 21, 22 when I would encounter people in this sort of tantra world. Some of them women, some of them men. And there was this one woman, and we would go to Lithia Park in Ashland, Oregon, and go on these walks and sit by the river. And she had been a tantrika for about 10 years. And I think I was around 21, 22, and she said, why don't you look for teachers who are teaching teachers? And I said, really? Like, people, you can do this for a job? How does that even work? And so I started researching. Now, the internet was like brand new around this time. And so there wasn't a lot out there, but what was there, the people that I was able to find, they'd all studied with Charles and Caroline, or they referenced Charles and Caroline.
Right.
And Charles at that time had a certification program. So in order to be eligible for the certification program, you had to come to the beginners weekend, and that's started my journey. Now, up until this point, I just thought that Tantra was about God and sex.
Mm.
And that's what I really wanted to reconcile within myself. Here was this thing called pleasure, but I had been brought up to believe that pleasure was bad and that the rules for men and women were very different. And I was in a great rebellion of that. That didn't hold the thread of truth for me. And I also grew up in this we started off as this born again Christian Pentecostal situation. And then when I was around 10 and 11, my parents converted to Catholicism, and I had to go to Catholic school and the whole 9 yards. And so I had this really sort of rich indoctrination of a spiritual connection, like a spiritual personal relationship to spirit. But then it was wrapped and shrouded in all of this shame and guilt having to do with sexuality.
Yeah.
And so that was really confusing for me. And so I just wanted to have great sex and feel like there was a God that was connected to it, because that's what I experienced when I was 18 with this older guy for the first time. I felt like I went to God. I mean, we were making love and I was outside my body watching myself make love. It was so profound what I was experiencing. Everything opened, all of me opened and like took flight. It was so spectacular. And then I was chasing that feeling ever since. What I didn't realize was also a part of this process was the healing piece. And it wasn't until that first weekend seminar when I realized, oh shit, what have I gotten myself into? Like, I'm going to have to really confront some things.
Now you're going to
If
have
I
to
want
open
this as much as I do, really, 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 really want this.
You got to open some can of worms.
Yeah.
And one can of worms leads to another can of worms.
Just kind of opens up to more miracles and more miracles and more miracles.
It's so
That's
true.
what I found out. Yeah.
Oh my God, it's amazing.
Yeah. And scary and awesome and vulnerable and tender and
Well, that's
miraculous.
that's a question I have for you is like, when you first start opening that up, when you first start being like, oh shit, here we go. Like, let me open this one and then that's going to open the next one. Was it harder at first? Did it get easier along the way? Or was it more like, this one's really challenging, this one's really beautiful, this one's really challenging? Was it a smorgasbord?
It would weave in and out. I think that what typically happens, both for myself and what I've watched over countless programs over the years, is mostly when you're first being introduced to sort of the healing arts, in this case, the sexual healing arts, you're often blessed with a lot of beauty. Like, it's gentle at first. It's like you open into this thing and it's like, wow, you get it. Like, you get that there's something really powerful here for you.
Yeah.
And that spark allows you to connect and cultivate to the courage that's actually inside to take the next step. So you'll have these really amazing experiences, and that doesn't mean that there aren't tears and there aren't little things you have to step around, right, as you're navigating, but you're rewarded really quickly.
Yeah.
And the breakthroughs come real fast. And then you have sort of these moments where it's like, oh shit, where am I now? Sometimes I describe it as like an artichoke. You know how like when you first are peeling back an artichoke, there's not a lot to scrape off the leaf. It's basically just like a delivery system for butter. It's lovely.
Or mayo.
Yum. And then, but you kind of keep on peeling back and it's like, ooh, these are so good. And now you're getting like more meat with every tender
Juicy.
leaf.
Yeah.
And then eventually you get to the damn choke. And if you're not careful, like those hairs are really unpleasant. And so you got to scoop out the choke. And you don't usually get it with just one scoop.
Right.
You got to swipe it around the heart. And so that's kind of what I think the sexual healing tantric path really is. It's sort of, you get this, we get in, you get some butter, then it gets real tender and real sweet, and then it gets a little hairy. But when you get through the hairy part and you realize, yeah, I can do this.
And then you really get to the heart.
Then you get to the heart of things, and then you get to really be with yourself in a way that so few people have a chance to be with
Experience.
themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, I love how you just described that, and what a great metaphor. The artichoke, I haven't heard that one yet. It's so good. It makes so much sense. I love it. But it's so many people in the world are suffering from an unhappiness, a loss of not just their dreams, but a loss of going for their dreams or going for their wholeness, like really discovering that heart. Because, maybe it was pleasant for a while, but then they got to that hairy middle. They're like, never mind, that's too much work, that's too hard. And I certainly have had people come to me and they're like, sounds good, but I don't want to do all that work. And it's true. Some people don't, and God bless, there's nothing. It's just a choice that you make. But when you do make that choice to go all the way through to the center of the heart, there's nothing else like it. And, you are such a glowing testament to that. It's really beautiful. And then this whole career, so there you are at the heart of the artichoke, and this whole career flowers forth for you. I mean,
Yeah,
tell us
I
about
was
that.
at an artichoke feast.
You were in
There's
artichoke
like
soup.
artichokes everywhere. Oh my God, which means there was a lot of chokes too, so it felt like once I opened up that door to like some really fundamental healing and shedding, there was a number of really intense years of like diving deep into that and weaving in and out of it. And so it seemed like it's such an accelerated process. It's like once you get a taste, you keep on coming back for more because you become really aware of a more embodied you. So you're tracking what's not in alignment. And it suddenly is more alive and it's no longer tolerable. So you then choose more and more and more to like get into the deep end and go, I sense there is a knowing of who I'm going to be at the other side of this.
Yeah.
And so for those people who are really drawn to this work, many of them, and people go varying degrees, right? Some people are just in it because they're on a sexy new date and they're on an adventure and they're just going to take a little taste. Other people take the full ride.
Yeah.
And it's like they get the call from the universe that this is going to be a major pivot point. And that's what it was for me.
I love it. And so I'm curious for you, at what point along your journey did you know that this was going to become a career path?
I knew before I signed up for that teacher training.
You did. Yeah.
I did. Yeah, I
You're
knew
like, I'm
it,
going to make
like
money with this.
2002. Yeah, that
I'm
this
going
was
to do this as my life path.
Yeah. Because I was at the age where I'm going, "God, should I go back to school? I'm working at a flower shop right now. I really like being a florist." But, like really asking, what's my gift to give in the world? I really wanted that answer. And I was so scared to go to that first weekend in Santa Cruz. I was like, who the hell comes to these things?
And
What
did you
am
go by
I in
yourself?
for? What if people tell me to take off my clothes? If anyone tells me to take off my clothes, I am out of there, I had like backup plans and all
I think
sorts of
everyone
things.
goes into that weekend with that.
Yeah.
Now, did you go on your own or with partner?
Okay, so here's the deal. Kind of musician, kind of not. Was the guy that I was dating, basically just another broke guy. So he didn't have the money to attend the seminar. And I was at my defiant stage where it's like, well, I'm not going to pay for you to come to the seminar at this point. I was
Right.
I was ready to make some changes about who I was attracting into my life.
Good,
So I'm like, well,
yeah.
you can come, but you don't have the tuition to actually take the class, but I'll try to bring back what I'm learning day to day. Big
Oh,
mistake.
okay.
Big mistake.
Yeah. For that container and the depth of that weekend.
Yeah, like there's no way I
way.
could have taught him anything. And
No
I really
way.
needed him to like sit in front of Charles so that I
That's
could have
right.
the experience that I needed
Right.
in the design of the program. And so I just remembered I had immediately I walked into that room and I felt a homecoming. Like I had found my people. These were soulful, heartfelt, open-minded, curious human beings who were asking the same kind of questions about sex that I was and about spirit. And I had no idea the questions about healing that was going to arise. But what I noticed that got healed immediately during the course of that weekend was that it renewed my faith in the opposite sex. because up until that point, I just felt like I'd been delivered disappointment after disappointment after disappointment. And I was starting to really put men in a certain category that I didn't want to put them in.
Right.
And so stepping into that place, it was like, oh, okay, I can trust this.
Yeah.
This is a place that I can trust. And so part of the unfortunate aspect of having brought this boyfriend along who couldn't attend the course was that I didn't feel like I could pick one of the men for the Saturday night home play. And there was at least 3. I can see them vividly in my mind
That
right
you
now.
would
I even remember
loved.
a couple of their names.
Oh.
And I could trust them.
Yeah.
I knew I could have picked any one of those and it had a really powerful, impactful experience. Yeah. And regrettably, even though I was so drawn to that, I wish I would have had the courage to follow through with that regardless of the boyfriend. I ended up just doing the solo practice on myself, which was very valuable.
Okay.
But once I heard everyone's stories on Sunday morning,
Yeah.
it was like, I got on the plane and went to the very next weekend seminar.
Yeah, you're like, I gotta go back. Yeah.
And then I picked somebody.
You ditched the boyfriend. And
After
did the
that,
full thing.
we were over after that weekend for sure.
Yeah, I love that. And so, and you've had such a journey with this work. Like then at what point did you start working with Charles and co-teaching with him?
So then I did the teacher training that summer in 2003. I became an event coordinator for them. And then I started being an event coordinator for many of the other locations. So I was getting my training at the back of the room, which was so incredibly valuable.
I bet.
It just taught me so much about producing events.
Yeah.
And then Charles and I, by my level 2 teacher training, we had started a romance.
Sparked something interesting.
Yeah. So we were together for 2 years in a long distance relationship. And I know that you had a really pivotal relationship with someone who was 27 years older than you. Charles, I was 25, he was 55. And we were together for 8 years. So in that time, I was learning so much about the business. I think it was really it was the business that really bonded us. And he did so much incredible sexual healing work with me. He really, I'll forever be grateful to Charles for the work that we got to do together for my personal healing. And then I got to, experience all of that, and which only helped me become a better teacher. And being able to then, Caroline Muir, him and Caroline had been divorced probably for 3 or 4 years before I met him. And at that stage, she was starting to want to do something different with her friends, Joan and Tomas Hartfield, and they started the Divine Feminine. And so Caroline said, hey, can you find someone else to teach with you? And ding, 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 that opened the door for me.
I see.
Yeah. And then, Charles, I probably hadn't earned that position at quite that time yet, but he took a leap of faith, and I got to sit on the stage and share when something moved me. And it was wonderful because I got to really be immersed in the work. And we both felt so connected to our purpose that we made really great romantic and business partners because that was number one for us. And we shared that in common.
Yeah, you were both so devoted to sexual healing and the love that that transpires through doing this work. You were so devoted to that, both of you individually, and then together it just got super heightened. And I'm sure in those, first 5, 6, 7 years, there was just I'm sure the students felt that very palpably. So really,
it was
powerful.
interesting. There were some people that got us totally, and then other people who were going to be classically triggered by the older man and the younger woman, right? And I kind of look a little bit like Caroline, and so I think that there could have been, there were lots of stories in people's minds about how I, all these things.
That
that was
snaked your way in there or something. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I'm really sensitive. I like being liked. I just prefer everyone to like me. So if you could do me that favor, you'd make my day.
That'd be better.
Just like me. And so naturally, that's just not the reality in life. And so that was
Yeah.
hard. I had to encounter that over and over and over again.
I'm sure that was a really interesting experience for you, especially because some of the people who were in the Source Tantra community had been in there when Caroline was teaching for years. And, and then along comes Leah and they're like, who's this girl? And so you must have
Yeah.
had to really kind of armor up a bit during that time in addition to like being vulnerable and
There was
authentic.
some pretty passive aggressive digs with some of the loyalists to Caroline, but what was so beautiful really is that Caroline and I always have a really good relationship.
Yeah.
And before I went on my first date with Charles, I called Caroline. And I mean, they've been divorced for years at this point, but I still asked if it was okay for me to go on this date.
Sweet.
And she's like, oh my God, I chose him to be my healer. You'd be a damn fool not to choose him to be yours. And I think that really set the tone for the harmony between Caroline and I. I really had a lot of respect and for her. And so we had a lot of harmony. There was never an issue between me and Caroline. I always felt like she had my back and vice versa.
Yeah, beautiful. She really invited you into that seat. And you just exemplified a really important point that is outside of this story, but I just want to highlight it for those who are kind of trying to navigate non-monogamy or in that polyamory type of world and reality. It's always a good idea to check in with the ex, no matter how long the separation has been there, or no matter how long they were together. Just more communication is better than none. So that's, and so sweet that you and Caroline had that bond and had that connection with one another for you, because you knew on the inside, like, this was the right next steps for you. These were the right path for you to go down. So then you taught alongside Charles for 15 years?
Up until the pandemic.
Yeah, up until the pandemic.
So that whole time, and then the pandemic hit, and then Charles. Then there was a big fire in Santa Cruz, and that displaced Charles for a while, and he was fighting cancer at the time, and so we're just resuming programs again in the fall. He was able to fight cancer, and he's healthy again, and so he's
It's
got the
amazing.
energy. It's amazing. He's
Such
gonna be
a
75
miracle.
soon, and he's just still
Miracle
at it.
story.
I'm really
Yeah, I
proud of him.
love it.
Yeah.
So powerful. And for you, I know, because we were in our mastermind through that pandemic time. I know that things were kind of shifting for you in that time period. You were, you'd been teaching alongside Charles in Source Tantra, and you'd also had more love work seminars where you'd been doing goddess seminar weekends and couples, one-on-one
private
VIP,
practice, yeah.
private practice, all this beautiful business, more love works. And then the pandemic hit, and you kind of started going into this like, how am I feeling about Tantra these days? Like, do I want to keep teaching this stuff? And like, where am I going on this path? And things started to open into a different direction for a moment.
Yeah, I mean, even before the pandemic, I was really starting to go, okay, it's time for me to. I'd always had my own business in conjunction with being a part of Source Tantra. And I felt like I needed to kind of, at some point, you got to leave your teacher, and go spread your own wings. And that was always on the plate. And so I'd be dreaming and thinking and planning. And then the Me Too movement happened, and cancel culture, and there was a lot of stuff around that for the Tantra industry. And although it was a really important contraction for us all to take stock and review, where are we at now, what needs to change, what's the shadow side in all of this, it was also really challenging. So, looking into all of that, and also having this desire, like this really deep desire to want to take this work and transform it to a degree that it would be more palatable to a mainstream audience. Being a Midwestern girl, I've always been kind of the weirdo, which is why I live in California now. But there's like this little girl in me who would love to take this work back to the Midwest and have it be received. And so how could I bring this to my people in a way that they could really hear it and get value from it and have their lives changed by it? And I knew that it was going to need a repackaging in order to do that. Then the pandemic happened, and I was just launching and testing new material for this new business. And that kind of took the wind out of my sails and had me feeling a little like I was fluttering out in no man's land. And my faith in God was really shaken all around this time. It was like, I don't know what I even believe anymore. I questioned everything.
Yeah.
During this time, I also had gotten married, and just everything had just been up. Like everything that I had lived for the last 20 years. Is this who I still am? And is this what I still want? And part of the gift of the pandemic was it put everything on pause. What it didn't put on pause was a program I had enrolled in about 6 months earlier, through positive psychology with Amelia.
Yeah.
And I had signed up both for her positive psychology applied certification and then also her coaching certification. I had no idea how much work it was going to be to do both programs at the same time. And thank God, because if I had also had my other business that I was trying to launch at the same time, I would have been in over my head. So it was wonderful timing.
It was a blessing.
To just dive in to positive psychology. And it gave me so much. One, I loved the science-backed information because it really helped bridge some of the things I'd been learning in Tantra for so long, which is this ancient art form.
Right.
I don't think there's much science research around much of its material, but what I could see from the positive psychology world, how much of it was relatable to the tantric practices. And so those two worlds started to collide and make a lot of sense. And I was healing parts of my own psyche and nervous system and my own mind, things that I had not been aware of that were in my way, my ways of thinking, my ways of looking at fear, my ways of not having been given enough resilience training growing up as a kid. There's some things I fundamentally had, but other things I didn't fundamentally have. It was wonderful to start filling in some of those gaps and also learning a whole new method. I mean, coaching is different from consulting and mentoring and teaching.
Right.
And so now I get to challenge myself with a whole new method of supporting people because I had come from this therapeutic teaching facilitator space. So I got to really stretch myself in holding another level of space for others that's been so rich. And I needed those things because I was starting to get a little bored and stagnant. And that led to all this questioning, like, what am I doing? Is this who I am? Is this what I want? Is the dream going to change again now? It kind of felt like a midlife crisis.
Yeah, it was interesting to witness you in that because our other friend we were masterminding with, Whitney and I, we would be like, but Leah, you must continue teaching Tantra. You are so damn good at it. And it's just, it was this testament of like, just because you're good at something doesn't mean you should keep doing it. There might be another calling. There might be something else out there. And it was beautiful the way that you took that time and you took that pause, and it was uncomfortable. I mean, I saw you in the discomfort of it, but you stayed with it and you listened and you learned new things and you took yourself into what you have always been really good at, which is like understanding is a huge value for you. It's something that's so important for you. And so now seeing Tantra through this positive psychology lens with all of this science, like evidence behind it, wow, that opens up Tantra. It makes this Tantra thing look like a whole different ball of wax. It's this whole different game. And so it was just really pleasurable from the outside to witness you go through all of that, because you did it with absolute honesty with yourself the whole way through. You when it was uncomfortable, you were uncomfortable. When it was opening up, you were in the opening up. You really stayed with the journey in such an honest way, which was really, I think that's all you can do in life, because these contractions and expansions are going to happen, and if you can stay honest to what you're really truly feeling in that moment, knowing that it's most likely going to change, then you will get through to the other side. And so then what shifted for you after all that work with your work with Amelia, getting those certifications and coming back to like, actually, yes, I do want to teach this work?
Well, so many things. One is, just with the weekend seminars, for instance, having a chance to miss them really
Right.
helped, right? So
Yeah.
you go a couple of years without the steady income, and those Sunday mornings are magic.
Total magic.
Miracles happen during those weekends, and I missed that. I might have not missed the interpersonal relationships that would get sticky, and the traveling and the schlepping and all that stuff, but I really have missed like the amazing love that transpires in those weekends. So space and time does make the heart grow fonder. And there's this doubt is so uncomfortable. Like you said, like it was really uncomfortable for me. I had been so sure of myself for so long to have that all be questioned. And for me to go, I don't know, when it's so natural for me to have an instant answer for what I need and want. It was challenging, no doubt about it. I really thought that the answer was going to come much faster than it did. I felt like I was really stuck in limbo for those couple of years, for sure. And it was like, do I really want to go mainstream? And everyone was reflecting back to me, like, what do you mean you're not going to teach Tantra anymore? And then I was looking at the positive psychology stuff, and I went into the consulting program, and maybe I'll go into corporations. And I'm like, and do what? Like, because I didn't want to abandon the years and years and years and years and years I have been collecting therapeutic skills, and especially around sexuality. And the idea of going into a corporation and trying to weave in my sexual stuff, well, that kind of seemed inappropriate. I just couldn't. I was like, sometimes I would have the bridge and then I would lose the thread. So it wasn't until I did a medicine journey, actually one that you invited me to. And it was an all women's medicine journey. And I just went into that medicine experience asking the mother to show me what was my next step. And please show it to me with lots of gentleness.
Good call. Good call.
Yeah, that was so smart on my behalf. I can't remember. Was it you that told me that that's the way to go into it?
I tell her, I'm like, it's your first time. You can talk to her. Ask her to be gentle. When it's getting too much, tell her it's getting too much.
I was certain I was going to get a smackdown, so I was really relieved that there was a way out of that. Yeah. And it was so beautiful. It was so lovely. And as I'm posing these questions to her, she said, you named your business More Love Works.
Yeah.
Sweetie, let more love work for you.
Yeah.
And it was like, ding, ding, ding. I don't have to actually know.
That's right.
I don't have to know. I just have to let more love work. And suddenly all the pressure and all the angst dissolved. And I knew I was, again, safe in the planet, safe in the world. And I might have not had my big questions about God answered, but actually I did. It was really like, it came back to nature again. Yeah. It was where spirit is for me. It's because I think I had so identified that there was this benevolent being looking out for me. And because I had found my purpose at such a young age, I thought it was all sort of orchestrated. And when that started to crumble, I couldn't hook back into it. That hook was gone. And the medicine journey helped me realize that the narrative needed to change. And the magic, just because I couldn't believe in that anymore, doesn't mean that now I don't believe in magic anymore. It's like the magic, though, is more tangible. The magic is really about being outside and seeing things grow. It's really about seeing human beings and seeing them grow. And there was a renewed faith. Remember, we opened up this conversation and I said I had a renewed faith in men. Now I had a renewed faith in humanity. And I saw the whole world and all of its people as being a part of the human family. And that I wanted to do whatever I could do to be non-separate from that. And so I feel like where my work is starting to pivot is really taking a look at that more non-dualistic perspective of going, where am I separate? And when I'm separate from love. It's just like the bottom line. So when I'm judging myself or if I'm judging other, I'm separate from love. So that's the space that I'm sitting in right now.
I love it. So powerful and so beautiful. I remember when you came out of that medicine journey, just the joy and beauty and the tears and the rawness and the realness and the emotion and the, oh my God, it's all right here. It's been here all along and here it is.
And here it is.
It is so beautiful. Yeah. And since then, it's just, you've been lighter, freer, more whole in yourself and your offerings, and just really more you, more love flowing through Leah's life, and so it's a gift and a blessing, because I think you exemplify it so well. And that's one of your big gifts as a teacher, is how you walk, how you carry yourself in the world, how you show up. You really are a living example to allowing more love to come into your life, to heal the wounds and the shadows and the traumas, and to become this brighter light in the world. And you have this incredible way when you're in front of the room of not only exemplifying that, but teaching it from a logistical standpoint. Like, you'll take, Charles might say something very poetic or esoteric or Taoist or whatever, it'll come, this very kind of nebulous concept, and you just distill it into here's something digestible. Like, here's the practical version of that, and here's how it can actually, and here's the science behind it, and here's the evidence behind it, and here's the tests that have been done on it. And you've always got an analogy for something, hence the artichoke analogy, and a lot of people learn really well with that, because it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Like, I get that. And so I think that's what makes you such an incredible teacher. The reason that you and I got into that mastermind together was because our dear friend Whitney and I, who were both students for the 10-day teacher training, she and I are both connoisseurs of teachers, and we were geeking out on that, like how we got to have the cream of the crop of the teachers, or we're not that interested in the content. And we both were drooling over Leah Piper. We were like, she's the best teacher. She's so amazing, and then she was like, let's have this mastermind. And so it was a beautiful turn of events, and I just felt so honored the whole way through. But really watching you, also one of the things that I noticed because I'm always watching the best teacher and watching what they're doing. And one of the things that I was always seeing you do was track the entire room, but from a very calm, centered place. And I think that your many years of study and experience with the Reiki and pattern types, and the way people go into protective pattern strategies really supports your ability to do that. In fact, the very first mastermind that we had, you shared that with Whitney and I, and she and I glommed onto that and have both now studied with your same teacher, Linda Cesara, and, really gone into the depths of what it means to live outside of pattern. And I see you do that as a practice in your own personal life a lot. So it's really a great example.
Thank you. Yeah, that's been a really fun playground to play in, is this energetic responsibility piece. And I certainly go into pattern like anybody else, but I try to take responsibility for my patterns. And I try to clean up the messes when they need cleaning. and to also embrace the messes, that they're like permission to be human, you know.
Yeah.
That's one's a little harder for me, but I'm really committed to it because I see how much trouble perfectionism can get me. And that's another thing that's like, it's been really cool to watch the positive psychology work and the energetic responsibility work and the Tantra work. You know, so many things have come together to kind of create this cradle of how I love to hold other people and myself and my life and the work at large. And I'm a big questioner. I like to know the reason why.
Yeah.
If you want to sell it to me, baby, you better tell me why and be able to explain it good, because the why to me helps me get all in.
Yeah.
And so to watch the whole energetics of a room and to know how to go, okay, here's the beginner, here's the advanced student. How am I going to make this program really good for both of them? Because one person needs me to slow down, another person needs me to speed up.
Absolutely. And well, here's the thing too, because I was coming in as somebody who had been already teaching Taoist sexology for a long time. I had my master's in Chinese medicine. I mean, I was an advanced student, though I hadn't really studied Tantra specifically. I already got it. So I remember my first beginner's weekend, I was actually there with my partner at the time. And I mean, he was looking over at me. He's like, "You are like in heaven right now, aren't you?" I was like, "This is so great." You know, I was in heaven, and I was picking up on nuances that you were speaking to and that Charles was speaking to. And I would look around the room and I'd be like, I knew my partner wasn't picking up on them. And I would look around the room and see who else is picking up on them. And there would be maybe like 2 or 3 other people who were like catching those little nuances. So that I think that's one of the beautiful things that you offer to all levels of students, is that no matter what you're saying, like there's gold in there for all levels.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I'm glad you felt that way. It's really true. You know, and I really love distinctions and nuances. It's one of the things I super geek out on.
They're so fun.
I also really love the opportunity to have someone who needs the communication a certain way, needs the support a certain way, needs the tone of my voice a certain way, and to be able to give that completely and fully, but keep everyone else included. I love the broad banding of being able to, like, it's for everybody, but right now this person needs my undivided attention. Yeah. And it ripples through the audience when that is done well. And there's an art to teaching and there's an art to facilitating, and I find that infinitely fascinating. It's my favorite, one of my favorite topics.
Yeah, and you really are such a master at it. It's incredible to when you know about teaching, about guiding, and about taking people from A to B, and then you're watching somebody do it so masterfully. It's super much like candy. It's delicious. And it really gives everyone it creates a synergy in the room. It creates this energy, like the whole collective nervous system in the room is with that one person that you're with. So everyone's mirror neurons shift to the way that you are connecting with that one person. And then there's that one person is feeling like, wow, this whole community is supporting me right now through this challenge of my sexuality or my emotionality or whatever trauma I've been through in my life. And it's there's very few places in the world where individuals can get that kind of support. And in these weekends with you and Charles, and even in your goddess weekends, that is so valuable.
Well, and I think even the work that you and I do together in our online programs, and wanting it to have that same kind of richness. And I had this little ping come up around my dad, because my dad is very much an actor and loves being on the stage. And it was something that growing up as a kid, that was the thing we bonded over. I want to be an actor too, just like my dad, and I love cheeseburgers too, because that's what he loves, and there's just like this little me mimicking him. And so, and he's such a good storyteller. And he was also really wise. Like there's some things that like come through my father's like really good sage advice, you know. He's got that available to him, and that's always impacted me. And so I think my whole life I've been collecting wise people. and I really surround myself with really smart, wise, conscious people because I love that. I'm like a sponge for that. And so in my teaching and style of working with people individually, also a lot of it is the storytelling, and it is the metaphors, and it is painting the picture, and it is bringing in the nuances. And I just think that that's a fun way to learn. And what I love about Charles is he's so funny. And so when you can learn about something that is oftentimes really charged, like sexuality, and people got a lot of stuff around it, man, it helps to lighten it up with humor.
Yeah, absolutely. It totally does. And that was another piece that I wanted to add is, as you both are orchestrating in very different ways, but such a beautiful synergistic way when you guys teach together, the way that you're navigating like one of the biggest, most taboo topics in a human being's life. And there's so much room for trigger and wounding to come up, and being left behind, and just all of these very common wounds, that we all carry. And I love the way nobody ever feels left out or left behind when they leave one of those weekends. Everyone feels taken care of. Everyone feels included. I've seen you pull people aside, on the breaks and be like, how you doing? Are you okay? Like, is there any extra support you need on the side? And so many facilitators don't take the time to do that. So there's really this deep, heartfelt essence that comes from you, and it's so incredibly valuable.
Thank you. I have to agree. I have a very big heart.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, ever since I was just a little kid, that's who I am. I just love everybody. And I really do. What's really important to me and something that I value immensely is the feeling of belonging. And I want people to feel like they have a right to their body. Yeah. They have a right to the planet and being on planet Earth, and they have a right to love. And it is like a birthright, and we all deserve to cultivate that and to feel that, and we can all extend that to each other. Yeah. That sense of belonging. And that doesn't mean I've got room for 25 more best friends. Right. But if I really want to hold that frequency so that we can all be a part of that frequency, so that when we're doubting our belonging, like me doubting my belonging these few years about what's next and where should I go and where do I belong? I mean, I even moved, right. And lots of transitions because we need to belong. We need to feel that. It's critical to our feeling of life satisfaction.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's part of our safety, part of our security, our being within community and within tribe. And, now we're in this time and place, especially post-pandemic, where there's been so much separation and segregation, and I'm over here and I can't see you or touch you, just like so much separation. And we're seeing the results of that in depression and shootings and, just really wild world that we're living in now. Where all of those 2+ years of separation has really created this bigger ripple in the world toward non-wholeness, not having a place, not belonging. So what would you say to any one of our listeners, anyone out there who's like struggling with feeling alone, feeling isolated, feeling like they don't belong, like there's not a place for them in the world? Maybe they're in a state of depression, or maybe they're just anxious about it.
Yeah, the way out of that is do something for somebody else. When we are so in our consumption of I don't belong, there's no one for me, I'm alone, nobody cares, it's a very self-centered existence, and it will cause your suffering. And the way out of that suffering is to go serve somebody else. You want to belong, go help somebody else belong. You know, that's the key, is get out of your own way, get out of the poor me, and go be that for others. Get out of your comfort zone. I hate being out of my comfort zone. I'm the first one to admit I don't like being uncomfortable, but that's where we grow.
Right.
And so we have to kind of move through the contraction and go, I am going to be responsible for myself. If I want to have a great experience, then I need to look for great experiences. I'll never forget, I had a student, at the end of the program, I said, how'd you like the seminar? You know, did you feel like you got value from it? And he goes, oh, I get value from everything. It's my job to create value in my life. It's not your job. I didn't come to this workshop expecting you to create value for me. I came to this workshop to create value for myself, and I found it. I had an awesome time. Thank you, big hugs. And I was like, oh, I like this guy. and ever since then, I've gone to every training and to every meal going, I am going to create value for myself here.
Yeah.
And it's so powerful because it's nobody else's job.
That's right.
And that is in alignment with all this energetic responsibility stuff that I've studied for so long. It's like, it's my job to have a happy life.
Right.
It's not your job to prove to me that you're going to give me a great this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah, nobody can do it for you.
Yeah, it really comes back to just shifting your mindset. If you're waiting for someone else to come along and love you, well, you might just wait forever then. You need to get out there and love someone. And then you become the vibration of that, and you become the magnet for that. And then you start having more and more experiences of that beautiful thing because you're the creator of it.
Yes, I love that. And I had a hit to speak this out loud to our viewers too, because I know a lot of our listeners are coaches, sexuality, love, relationship coaches, and you know they're helping other clientele out there as well. And what you just said can take so much pressure off therapists or coaches or anyone who's in that healing role. It's not your responsibility to create that aha or that shift or that change in them. I think some of us get into this with, it's like, oh my God, I didn't make the change for the person. Now I feel terrible. You know, it's like it causes a constriction within us.
Yeah.
And that piece is so crucial to being a really good leader, therapist, coach in this, especially this industry, is, you know, here's the tools, here's the pathway, here's the possibility. It's up to you.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to take it on if it doesn't work for you.
Yeah, and that's really hard to do because we get invested in people, and
we want them to succeed.
And we want them to have a transformation. You know, we want them to. We want the work to deliver its promise, because when you do the work, you will experience the promise.
Absolutely.
But that's the thing. Like, my job is to pitch.
Right.
Your job is to catch. And I'm not in control of you catching or not.
That's right.
But I will show up modeling in my embodiedness what belonging can feel like, what unconditional love, what empathy, what presence is, and what it can feel like. That is my sacred job, because number one, it serves me.
Right.
I like being the person who's living that way. That's why I'm a teacher, is because I need these things.
Right.
Because I am very susceptible to getting lost in depression and woe and anxiety. You know, I could take that road and drive it to the moon and back. So because I know that about myself, I've chosen these life paths, and I've chosen to be in service to others with it because I need it.
Yeah.
So it's like, it forces me to live it.
So brilliant.
Yeah. So just so that the audience knows, I'm like, I have all the stuff. Yeah. You know, this is not someone who's just, oh, I'm better now, I've done some work. It is a work in progress.
It's a work in progress. Yeah. And a beautiful masterpiece being delivered through and through. So, darling, do you have a free gift for our listeners that you want to offer?
Yeah. So I want to share with you a very cool secret that I discovered about pleasure. Ooh. Because if you are a vulva owner, you've probably experienced this sensation where you see the orgasm in the distance, right? You're so close. You are going to get that orgasm. The orgasm door is headed to your neighborhood. And then suddenly you're like so close, and you're so close, and you're so close, and then bam, it's gone.
Where did it go?
Where did that baby go? I was so close. It is so frustrating. And I discovered what we do and how to not do it anymore. So this is really important if you are lovers with a vulva owner, or if you have a vulva. I highly recommend you take advantage of this free gift, because I share with you the simple thing that we're all getting wrong. And it's really important to me that you watch this video and then you tell everyone about it, because there are too many missed clitoral orgasms that have happened over the eons and the eons and the eons and the eons of the existence of the feminine.
And the gods don't like that.
This one little thing, because I want you all to I want the doors to come to you. I don't want you to ever chase the door again. So that's my gift. Never miss another clitoral orgasm again.
Ooh, it's such a good one. Oh my God, you must get this free gift. It's phenomenal. And you don't want to miss another clitoral orgasm, because they're just so juicy and delicious, and they make you feel so happy. Yeah. Just like Leah Piper, juicy, delicious, and she makes you feel so happy.
I feel so happy. Ding, ding.
Thank you. Thank you so much, darling.
Cool.
So sending you all love, love, love.
Love, love, love.
Thanks for tuning in. If the hosts seem to know what they were talking about, that's because they do. Leah Piper is a tantric sex master coach and a positive psychology facilitator. Dr. Willow Brown is both a Chinese and functional medicine doctor and a Taoist sexology teacher. Don't forget, your comments, likes, subscribes, and suggestions matter. Let's realize this new world together.